please rise if possible and pledge allegiance followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Jenna, can we have roll call, please?
Trustee Stout?
Here.
Trustee Rhodey?
Here.
Trustee Belt? Here. Trustee Pater? Here. Trustee Kreiser? Here. Trustee Grabowski?
Here.
President Knutson?
Here. Sorry. Item 2 on tonight's agenda is public hearing presentation of the 2024 village audit results by Baker Tilly.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to be here. Thanks for having us. This crowd, it's usually not the auditors that people are coming to see, so we'll try to keep this kind of brief, but we do want to hit the highlights that, thank you for sharing up here on the board. This should be very similar to you. What's that?
State your name.
Oh, John Rader, and this is Leah Gaffney that's with me. Leah's been a big part of the village's audit for the last couple of years, so I'm glad she could actually join me here at the meeting. So we're going to share some of these highlights as we go through it to talk about where the village landed financially at the end of the year, point out a few metrics. If you have questions, please let us know as we go through this. I'm going to start with page 1, and it's a bar graph, and it focuses on your general fund, which, as you know, is the primary operating fund of the village. And in governmental accounting, you can have 5 different categories of fund balance. Think of it as like buckets at the end of the year. And I'm going to start at the very bottom there. You can see the non-spendable portion is very small. It's just it's 150,000, which is the lighter blue amount there. That's made up of prepaids. That's driven by GAAP. A little bit in that category right above there of just 3,300. That's the amount that was donated to the village a number of years ago for the maintenance of the Kep Park. Nothing uncommitted. Assigned is at 2.1 million. And that's made up of amounts that are laid out in the detail of the financial statements on page 44, but amounts that have been kind of set aside, so to speak, for police purposes, parks, capital projects. And the biggest category, though, is an amount that is probably the best indicator of the financial results of the general fund at the end of the year, because your policy, as you're going to see on the next page, anything above your policy amount rolls into a category that goes into that assignment, and that's for infrastructure needs going forward. It allows the village in the years when actually there's a surplus in the general fund to set aside those funds for future infrastructure needs that then allows you to reduce the borrowing that's needed for them. Okay? So I'll circle back to that in a second, but that did go up by went up to 1.9 million from 1.3, so it increased about $600,000 for that particular assignment. Unassigned is set by policy. Again, you'll see that on the next page. Not a big change overall. But the total fund balance on the very top there, you can see went up 839,000, and that's also kind of laid out in the middle here in this very high-level summarized income statement. Your revenues came in over budget. It's driven by permit revenue, about 200,000, and then investment income. That was the biggest driver, $430,000 over what you budgeted. The market was strong in 2024. You saw the results of that. And then on the expenditure side, that is over budget as well, just slightly, kind of offset that permit revenue. Building inspections went up. Those usually are somewhat of a mirror image of each other in villages each year. Public Works, a little bit over, and a contingency account. Again, the details of this are all in the back of the financial statements on pages 55 to 57. So if we go to the next page, you'll see, like I said, how that plays out in your policy. It's a very flat line here, and that's intentional, because the village's policy is, as it reads here, a minimum of 35% of the next year's budget, so 2025, that you're operating in right now, is to be set aside and with a maximum of 40%. So it's been at 40% for the last 5 years here, as you can see. Other places we audit in Wisconsin of similar size based on population are those blue dots. And so it's all right around that 40%, which I thought is fairly interesting. It aligns with your policy. Again, the biggest change here, though, is that change in the infrastructure account going up this year by about $600,000. As far as debt goes, the next two slides here, and the first one is taking a look at it in a statutory sense. In Wisconsin, we're limited to 5% of the equalized value. That's that black line. That went up about 2.5%. And the GO debt that's outstanding that is kind of governed by or dictated by that statute, a net change of an increase there by $2.1 million. So your actual debt capacity or the amount of limit that you're using or utilizing is at 34%. That's a calculated amount between those two different points that I just mentioned. Last year it was 32%. 2 years ago it was 38%. So it's hovered around the mid 30% for the last 4 years in a row. There are some nuances about this. You issued a note, anticipation note, in 2024 that got allocated across multiple funds. That's 6.3. That is not part of that calculation there. That was just recently refinanced as well with GO debt, I believe. So that will increase that, have an effect of that going up next year. And then the next slide is how much do you pay in debt service? We always try to recommend around 20% or less, and you've been below that each of the years. That's that red line plotted out there. You're at 11.7%, so no concerns there by any means. And of course, you work with your financial advisors to keep that going forward. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Leah, and she can talk about the utility funds.
So this next slide is for the water utility. So rates driven by the PSC authorized rates. So the operating results you see here are used with rates that were approved in 2022. You can see in the current year, the operating expenses did hover over quite a bit the operating revenues. That was really due to some major well rehabilitation and water tower painting expenses. So big jump from the prior year usually is due to those sort of expenses that are kind of a one-off and that are pretty significant in dollars. As far as unrestricted reserves, that's how much unrestricted cash you have, the water utility has on hand, and how many months it could cover. So just under 13 months there, so a very healthy unrestricted cash balance. That bottom table is showing the investment in capital, what the water utility has in and on the ground, and what it is, what it's financed by. So 75% equity, 25% debt. So a good, healthy allocation there. Anything above 50 is usually pretty good. Jumping to the next one is the sewer utility. The sewer utility had operating income this year. Usually, operating revenue and expenses usually kind of go hand in hand as far as if one increases, the other one does as well. So in the current year, they both showed a slight decrease, but still a operating income. Sewer utility rates for 24 were approved Q1 of 23, so still utilizing those 23 rates to cover those expenses in the year. Unrestricted reserves, again, good healthy balance of 15 months, and then a 82 versus 18% allocation for investment in capital. So all good things there. Lastly, for me, stormwater utility, again, rates went into effect Q1 of 2023. As far as the operating results, increase in revenue with a decrease in operating expenses. There was significant storm water utility maintenance required in the last year. So again, those one-off kind of drives that line. So in the current year, there was less of that, providing a good operating income for the stormwater utility during the current year. Unrestricted reserves, just under 6 months there. And then in the investment in capital is a good 78 compared to 2020, 22% for investment in capital.
I'll wrap it up by talking about this last fund here, the Lehman Fund, a little bit different presentation. It continues to maintain a really good, stable financial situation. I think when the rates were set for this fund about 10 years ago or so, when it was created, there was some question of was it going to be able to be self-sustaining, and it certainly has. The assets have continued to inch up just slightly. Good steady growth. Liabilities are going down as the small amount of debt is being paid off. But overall, that equity position, the net position, just continues to inch up very slightly. So no concerns there. It's up 2% this year. And it's at positive operating results or changes in that position every year it's been in existence. So you did a nice job of setting those rates and maintaining that for the intended purposes. The only other thing I want to mention, nothing on the numbers, is the audit did go well. You know, we had some challenges this year, and we had some success too, I would say. The complexity issues of the note anticipation note, the NAN that was issued, and then, of course, the issues with the transportation utility and the accounting that impacted that as it's being phased out. And then, of course, just the change in management here, trying to find things and working through that. So really appreciate Matt and Colin coming to help on so many different items that we were asking about. And quite often the response is, well, I'm not sure, but we'll find out. And so through all that, we're still sitting here having issued within 2 days of last year. So that's a really good indicator, and appreciate the help that everybody put into making that happen. Do you have any questions for Leah or I?
Any questions from the village board? John, for the audience, a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Basically, what does it boil down? What's the state of the village? Is it in good shape?
Yeah, I mean, there's been financial stability, you know, in all the years I've been coming here. I think the utility funds are in solid shape. Of course, there's a lot of upcoming projects that you're trying to anticipate, and you do want to be ahead of that with the proper rates and such. General fund's been very stable, and that's a really good policy that allows you to move it into infrastructure needs, which again reduces borrowing. TIFs are fine, but they're young, so yeah, I don't have any concerns.
Thank you, John. And I would like to thank staff, especially because there were a lot of hiccups this past year and changes, and as John stated, I think they did a tremendous job. And thank you, everybody, for doing this, including the board that's holding their spending now. Thank you, John.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 3, approval of the minute from June 3rd, 2025, special village board meeting. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections as to the way they are presented this evening? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second, Rhodey.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are hereby adopted. The minutes from the June 3rd, 2025 regular village board meeting. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections as the way they are presented this evening? Again, if not, I'll look for a motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve the minutes from June 3rd, 2025, the regular village board meeting.
Second, Grabowski.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Minutes for the regular village board meeting are hereby adopted. Item 4, citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with board members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the board is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the board. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and time will be indicated by an audible alarm. When the alarm sounds, speakers are asked to conclude their comments. Speakers are asked to use the podium and please state their name and address for the record. Is there anybody here in the room that would like to make a comment? Yes, sir, in the back.
My name is Tim Steidel with Mixon Lakeside 145 West Wisconsin Avenue, the new Mixon Lakeside Beach Bar. I just want to talk to you guys about our parking situation that is lingering out there. I know that we've had talks with Seatmans and Joe Grosh about where we can start putting cars in the village. It's gotten to the point where it's very hard to maneuver down there. The building that was Duncan's is now being charged for, and they're causing some problems for me down on Mixon to validate, and I have angry customers, and we're not moving people through the village properly. I think we really need to address better signage. We need to get signages up where people are coming in from the other side of 16, coming into town off of Wisconsin there, to direct them to the municipal parking lot. Because on Saturday, I walked down the municipal parking lot and there was 3/4 of it was still empty. We need to do a better job of it. My business is depending on parking. I would like to talk to someone on the village board how I could maybe start a valet service for my customers and create an opportunity to park them in other areas. I talked to my wife, who's an insurance agent. She doesn't think that would be a problem for me to do because it's under our umbrella. They do it down in Florida by us, where they valet park on Fifth Avenue and they take your car away and it's $20. I wouldn't charge $20. I would just tell them to tip our drivers. But I would maybe do it depending on it. But I think we need to do better signage of getting into the municipal park. We need to do a better job of doing it. If you guys would like to talk to me about it at my establishment, you're more than welcome to come down or set a time down. I would love to be part of it. We do need to address the parking down there. It is chaos. And we need more handicap parking down there as well. We only have one spot that takes up that whole street. One handicap. And I had 5 handicap people coming from a long ways to come down to my building. So I think we need more handicap, and we address it, either turn that into a boardwalk then. I would love to see a boardwalk. I'd like to see something more than what it is now. It's a parking lot more than anything. So thank you for your time. Appreciate you guys on the board.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board at this time? Yes, sir, please.
My name is Lowell Geithman, 526 Greenwood Court. And I have the tree problem. And 23 years ago when I moved in, there was a nice little tree. Now it's gotten so big that its roots are traveling all up my yard. And the also roots are toward the curb. I had a professional person out, looked at the tree, and he agreed that that root could, not too long a time, buckle that curb. And also last year I called to have it trimmed, and nobody came over. So I called again, still nobody came over. So then winter came, I didn't do anything about it. May I called once, didn't hear anything. About a week later, I called again, and then 2 hours later, they came out. But before that, I had called and changed my request to cutting the tree down. So they came out to trim the tree. So I talked to the fellow that was there, and he called somebody and then said they couldn't cut it down today, but they could do it in a week and a half or 2 weeks. And so I said, okay, fine. And then we said, well, can you just trim the lower branches down off? And he said, yeah, we can do that. So they trimmed all the lower branches off and said we'd be back in about a week and a half or 2 weeks to cut it down. About a week or two later, I got a call that said they weren't going to cut it down. So that's why I'm here, is to I talked to Jay, the supervisor, and he suggested I come here and talk to the board. And I would appreciate your consideration of cutting that tree down. So,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Are there any other comments? Anyone else that would have?
Hi, everyone. Chris Krasovich, 1055 Oak Circle, in the village of Pewaukee. I'm here tonight because it's summer. And that means it's construction season in Wisconsin, and it is complaint season in Pewaukee. And I understand there have been a lot of noise making about our beautiful beach. We are super fortunate to enjoy a gorgeous jewel, a gem of a beach right in our downtown area. And I'm very grateful to this village board for taking good care of that beach and the lake and making sure that they have instituted policies and practices and ordinances that have increased safety and enjoyment. You've all been a part of that, and it's truly appreciated. But as a resident, I'm somewhat troubled by what appears to be an annual cycle of complaints, and I feel that it's largely an overreaction or a misunderstanding of what it actually means to have a free public beach. Among the concerns I've seen expressed are teenagers. God, we're all getting so old, and those teenagers, they just don't get any less obnoxious. But here's the thing. They're complaining about teenagers playing football on the beach. I don't know about you, but in about 30 seconds, I could come up with a list of at least 30 things that those teenagers could be doing as opposed to playing football on the beach in the sun, which feels like a pretty wholesome, enjoyable activity that I'm glad they're able to enjoy. Outdoor recreation, vitamin D, screen-free interaction, that's a huge positive. We were all teenagers once upon a time, and they actually have as much a right as we do to be at the beach. Of course, teens and all our beach visitors do need to show respect, consideration, and a little common courtesy, but those things are not ordinance-driven. They're common sense-driven. We should all be capable of those things. If you hear someone using problematic language on the beach or anywhere else, or getting up to activities that are causing trouble, feel free to, stand up, walk over, say something. And if you need additional support, there's no need for a Facebook rant. You can just get that support and get the issue addressed. It's not that hard. I've also seen it suggested that families are unable to enjoy our beach or are shoved off onto the grass because of the excessive crowds, including all those darn teens. And I would describe that as a Karen-driven fallacy. There are families at the beach every day, no matter how busy it is, enjoying themselves, and mine has been one of them over the years. That's a wonderful thing. I hope those families and those teens continue to enjoy our beach and our downtown area and patronize all our wonderful businesses, some of whom I think are here tonight. Those businesses are huge assets in our community, and they sustain the residents and enhance our downtown area. And speaking of those businesses, that is the final area of concern that I keep hearing cropping up, the suggestion that they're negatively impacted by high beach traffic, but that math doesn't math for me. If there's lots of people at the beach, I guarantee you that means there's lots of people patronizing those businesses. And of course, if those businesses have any issue with patrons' attire or the beachy lack thereof, they can go ahead within their rights to require shoes, shirts, wigs, or whatever else they see fit, whatever else they prefer the guests wear. That's not a matter for the village board. We don't need big government to tell our business owners how to run their shops and their restaurants. That's up to our very capable business owners. So, in closing, it's hot. The beach is busy. That's good. That's a good thing for everyone. Grab a cold drink and enjoy it, or if it's not for you, stay away. It's Wisconsin. In 3 weeks, the season will change, and we will not have to deal with all this beach traffic anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make a comment at this time about anything? Doesn't necessarily have to be town, village, whatever.
My name is Eli Kelling. I'm a resident of the village. I had put together something to say, but somebody so elegantly said it much better than I can, so what she said. I also want to say thank you. I've been around for a number of years, and when I first got here, I was really unaware of how much the village had to do, and excuse me. I just want to say thank you for the time that you guys have put into this. I've seen some of Jim Grabowski's amazing work, so thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? If not, we're going to move forward then. Okay, item 5 is ordinances. We have none. Item 6, we're going to drop down to item 8, review, discussion, and possible action to award contracts for 2025 road and utility improvements, West Wisconsin Avenue and East Wisconsin Capitol Drive. Matt, do you want to handle this?
Well, I'll start off, President Knutson, but I'll pass it to Dave. This is the annual road project, and Dave has been working with our engineers to design the project and get it to the point where it went out for bid. And as the board knows, there are a lot of different issues that were incorporated into the projects, like the meeting at the railroad crossing. So it went out for bid earlier, was it last week, Dave, that it went out for bid? And so he worked with our village engineers to recommend approval of one of the two bids that came in. And Dave, I don't know if there's any other detail you want to lend to that.
I can just say that there were 3 bids. One of the bids was disqualified. They didn't have a proper bid bond. So the 2 bids were opened, and the parent low bid was by Payne and Dolan for $1,395,991.86. And so that's the recommendation of which bid to award. In general, the project that we're doing this year is on Capitol Drive from Quick Trip to the flower shop. And it crosses the railroad tracks. And then the other section is from West Wisconsin Avenue from the railroad tracks to Burroughs Drive.
One question on the Capitol Drive one. There is the original, I believe, scope was 60 feet or so past Dynex up Capitol to meet up with the new pavement that was put in as part of the Capitol Drive project. Is that still the case? Because on
Yes.
okay, just because I see it ending at Dynex there, so I was just making sure that was still in there.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
And then, do you think that we would be looking at the West Wisconsin portion from Burroughs all the way to Ryan as part of 2026?
Yep, that's the plan as of now. So the plans are done for that.
Yeah.
We would have included that, it's just that when we did our final cost estimate, we didn't have the funds for that, so we pulled that out.
Okay.
We wanted to leave a little cushion in there so that in case there's change orders that come up during the project, and we didn't want to come in overbid too and not have enough money to do not be able to award the project on a meeting like tonight. Because last year we ended up having, well, it was no bids, but because we just had too many different, for different reasons, nobody bid on it. So, but yes, and the other project that we'd like to do in the future, we already had full plans ready to go, is Glacier Road from West Wisconsin, stop and go to the village limits. So, and for that, we're still working with 2 property owners trying to get some easements, which we'll probably talk about at a different meeting.
Are there any questions or comments? Somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to award the contract for the 2025 West Wisconsin East Capitol Drive road projects.
To which bidder?
Oh, Payne and Dolan, sorry.
Thank you. Second, Rudy.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Item 6A now. Discussion, review, and possible action to approve Resolution 2025-09, a preliminary resolution to assess for sidewalk removal and replacement in 2025 road and utility improvement projects. Matt?
Thank you, President Knutson. So this is the preliminary resolution, and it works off of the estimated cost of the project. And what this does for the public is it signifies our intent to assess for this work. I think this is a little different for the community regarding sidewalks. I think we've assessed for curb in the past, but I don't know about for sidewalks. So Dave, I think, might fill in some detail for us.
So we have an ordinance that allows us to assess for removal and repair of sidewalk. And the ordinance states it's the property owner's responsibility to pay for all costs. So some people might know there's a lot of sidewalk through the village that probably needs to get repaired, removed, replaced all over the place. And so we're just starting with our road project this year. It's a good spot to improve all the sidewalk that's within our project limits. So we put together an assessment roll. There's one change to it, but that's not the important thing tonight, but it's just tonight's getting permission to be able to proceed with assessing the property owners. So last year, the village assessed for curb and gutter on some properties along Orchard Avenue. And I looked back for a few years, I couldn't find anywhere where the village had recently assessed for sidewalk, so it hasn't happened recently, but it is.
Pretty obvious based on the conditions of our sidewalks.
Yeah. And just to kind of get ahead of things, because in case the property owners might be upset that they get a bill, I already went and met with all these property owners to give them explain what the intention I had for this, and everybody met it with, they recognize that there's sidewalk that needs to be approved, and then nobody said, no, I don't want this to be done. I mean, unless they're here tonight, and there's one property owner had a very large bill, and I explained it to him. I told him it's gonna be very large, he understood. But I said it's gonna make that corridor of Capitol Drive look so much better. And he was all for it. So, and it's probably end up being a little cheaper than if he went out and tried to get bids himself to do it. So.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the
Dave, is there any ADA components?
So at each of the intersections that we're working on, we're redoing the sidewalk ramps, and those are all being updated at each intersection, and the village has to pay for that, for those intersections, for the sidewalk at the intersections.
Okay.
So, or if so along Capitol Drive, we're relaying the water main, and we relay the water services to each property along Capitol Drive. And so that's from the water main in the street to the curb stop valve box, which is located usually behind the sidewalk. So we have to rip out 2 panels of sidewalk usually, and the village pays for that.
What is your timeline for doing this project?
So we're hoping to start in mid-July. And just a sideline, there's gonna be a lot of disruption with any construction project. And I don't wanna get off topic, but that's part of this. We already talked about the project, so.
Any other questions or comments?
Dave, you mentioned a change or a possible change in the scope of the project just before. That doesn't have to do with the properties listed on.
No.
No, okay.
I had miscalculated in my formula one of the properties.
Okay, but the scope of the properties that could potentially be assessed, that's correct, is listed on.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2025-09.
Second, Kreiser.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 2025-09 is hereby adopted.
And thank you for being proactive in meeting with those property owners.
Absolutely.
Review, discussion, and possible action to approve resolution 2025-10, a resolution regarding the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources reporting year 2024 compliance maintenance annual report. This is pretty much a yearly thing that we have to do, so those who've been on the board know about this. So I'm just going to ask, are there any questions or comments as it relates to this particular item? Yes, Matt, go ahead.
Just to make a comment to recognize Sean, who's in the audience. Sean is our utility supervisor, and we are utility received a good score on this report, and thank you for his hard work.
Okay, then I will look for a motion.
Motion to approve Resolution 2025-10 regarding the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources reporting year 2024 compliance.
Second, Grabowski.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Under old business, review, discussion, and possible action to approve the written decision regarding Hawthorne Place LLC's petition appealing the 2024 Village of Pewaukee Fire EMS fee assessment for real property located at 1105 Hawthorne Place and having tax ID number PWV 09029960007. Which Matt would like to take this?
I can take it, President Knutson. So those on the board will remember that the fire and EMS ordinance, the appeal procedure provides that after a decision is made after the close of evidence in a hearing, which occurred with respect to this petition on June 3rd, that the board render a final written decision. So that is what is before you tonight. The final written decision sets forth the evidence which was presented and the findings made at the hearing on June 3rd with respect to this petition. And it's really just to memorialize the action that the board took so that we can sign this and provide it to the property owner. So for those who were not here, you do not necessarily have to be at the hearing in order to vote to approve or vote on this written decision. It's more akin to approving minutes and memorializing an action of the board that was already taken. So happy to answer any questions, but those who were on the board last year will remember that this is the next step and the final step in the procedure with respect to this appellant.
Any questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the written decision regarding Hawthorne Place LLC's petition appealing the 2024 Village of Pewaukee Fire EMS fee assessment.
Second?
A second, Kaiser.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Review discuss, item 8B, review discussion and possible action to approve an engagement letter with Quarles and Brady for a safe drinking water loan.
Yes, President Knutson, please. So the board, just to remind the board, this has been in motion for a little over a year, I think, working on this project with our engineers, Rupert and Milky. They had pursued a grant on our behalf with the Wisconsin DNR, and that comes in the form of a forgiven loan. So the Wisconsin DNR, what that amounts to is has approved a safe drinking water loan to the village and forgiven half of it. So that's a great savings for the utility that amounts to about $500,000, which is wonderful. The utility still needs to borrow for the remaining 50%, and the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program has steered us toward a bond. Traditionally, we use Quarles and Brady as bond counsel to guide us through the legal parts of that process. So this is their engagement letter to bring them on to help us through securing that bond. This isn't actually approving the loan. That'll come at a future date.
Any questions from the board? If there are none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the contract with Quarles and Brady's to secure financing.
Second, Roy.
Do we have a motion and a second? Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Review and discussion of an update of the Quiet Zone project. Matt?
Yeah, so thank you, President Knutson. Dave and I had to thumb wrestle to see who would write the memo for this one. Unfortunately, this isn't good news. R.A. Smith, who is the consultants that we're working with to pursue our Quiet Zone, learned from their contacts with the Federal Railroad Administration that the two intersections on the west end of the village, West Wisconsin and Kopmeyer, that they would need to be upgraded in terms of the detection equipment at those intersections before they would support a Quiet Zone designation. So there are a lot of questions that Dave and I still have about this. At this point, we're directing R.A. Smith to move forward with the diagnostic review meeting, because that's when we're hoping to get some detail in terms of how we get a price tag to bring before the board for a proposal. It appears to be up to the discretion of the individual railroads as to what sort of supporting apparatus they need. So we anticipate it will be somewhat expensive, and we're as disappointed as board members that this is slowing down the process. But we learned of it recently, and we know that this is an important topic for the community. So per Dave's recommendation, we wanted to bring it to you right away.
Are there any questions? Yes, Bob.
Is there still a chance that we go forward with the CWS system and they deny the Quiet Zone?
To my understanding, no. To my understanding, that's the outstanding piece.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I asked that question prior to your tenure with us, that do we only get one crack at this? Otherwise, because it kept seeming like we were delaying this. Well, we got to find this out. We got to add this piece. And it's like, can we apply? And if they say no, can we correct and reapply? Is the question. Because we keep delaying prior to you. We kept delaying applying to get everything perfect, but we don't know if we need everything perfect. So do we get multiple bites at the apple is what I'm wondering. Or is it one and done? If we get denied, they're like, sorry, you can't apply for another 20 years.
I don't know the answer to that exact question. I can certainly pursue that with our consultants. And maybe that's part of the discussion at the diagnostic review meeting.
Because these were all upgraded based upon their safety standards a couple years ago, and that's why it's kind of like, okay, they oversaw the application and the implementation of the designs that were put in place. So I would like to think that those would be eligible, but I don't know the rest of the board's feelings on that.
How long does this expand our timeline?
I don't think we have a concrete answer on that, Dave. No.
You mean if we had to if we wanted to install new equipment prior to applying?
Yeah.
Significantly, years? Because we'd have to fund it and then install it, and so I would ballpark it in years. That's what I'm saying, is that I think we, as you had put, keep going with the timeline that R.A. Smith had set out. And if we do get multiple cracks at it, throw a dart at the wall and see if we, get it through. And if not, then we can go to plan B of having to correct, my opinion.
Do we have that next meeting scheduled already?
No, it has not been scheduled yet.
We wanted to have tonight's meeting and then update everyone. And then R.A. Smith is waiting for us to get back to him to schedule a meeting. So that was the plan like 2 months ago, to schedule the meeting. And then once they heard back this bad news, they just didn't pursue scheduling it because they thought we would just give up.
We don't know if it's fully bad news yet. It's unfortunate news.
So then we said, why? Well, we don't know if the board and the community wants to give up. So we want to have the meeting and keep moving on and find out really how much it costs. So that's why we brought it tonight right away. and to find out, you know, there could be a big cost for this, but until we really know what it is, we want to keep moving along, because it sounds like it's like one of the most important issues to everyone.
Well, because we've only been talking about it for 10 years.
Yeah. I think it's important that we continue, find out the specifics as far as costs and things like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item 8D, alcohol, approval of alcohol beverage licenses for 2025-2026. First one, I would like a motion to approve as presented the applicants for Class A beer and Class A liquor cider only license as presented this evening.
Could we just ask, as a general question, Jenna, are there any concerns on any of these applicants?
Nope, no concerns. The fire department didn't have anything. Building inspection, treasurer or police chief. The only thing that I ask is that all of the approvals are contingent upon the payment of all outstanding bills, fees. So like if they have a outstanding village utility bill or an invoice or something like that, they need to be paid before I physically give them the license.
I'll make a motion to approve the Class A with the clerk's requirements.
Second, Peter?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. I'd like a motion for the applicants for a Class A combination license, A beer and Class A liquor, as presented this evening.
Motion to approve Class A combination license as presented with the clerk's requirements.
Second, Kreiser.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Motion for the applicants for a Class B beer license as presented.
Motion to approve Class B combination license as presented with the clerk's requirements.
Second, Rhodey.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion again is hereby carried.
Did you do the one right before that, or did I miss it? Class B beer?
That's what I just did.
I think the
No,
motion was
we
just
missed
for Class B combo.
We missed one.
So, yeah, just make sure we hit Class B beer.
Make a motion to approve the Class B beer license as presented with the clerk's requirements.
Second, Peter?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Applicants for a Class B beer and Class C wine license.
I'll go
presented.
five. I'll go 5 for 5. Motion to approve applicants for Class B beer and Class C wine as presented with the clerk's requirements.
Second, Kreiser.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Okay, then we'll move on to the next item here. Just 1 second, please. My computer's not being very nice to me tonight.
Very comprehensive packet.
Yeah,
300 pages.
it's the only thing I miss about the papers. Okay. Item E, hearing on an appeal of the 2024 fire EMS protection fee filed by KKN Quail LLC, CO Patrick Brotherhood regarding real property located at 1088 Quail Court and having tax ID number PW 0903106 and possible action therein. Matt?
So for the board and those in the audience, this is another appeal of the 2024 fire and EMS fee assessed on the property that the president just noted. This applicant was scheduled for a hearing, I believe, on June 3rd, requested one courtesy adjournment to tonight. I believe counsel for the appellant is here to make a presentation on their behalf. But just for once again, for the board and the audience, and I guess the appellant, what we are looking at this evening is a hearing on the petition for appeal. And the board's determination from the ordinance is as follows. The board shall determine whether the number of ESEs, emergency service equivalents, assigned is fair and reasonable in accordance with the terms of this ordinance. And in the event that the appeal is granted, whether or not a refund is due the appellant and the amount of the refund. The board shall conduct a hearing, and that's what we are doing this evening. Traditionally, we have let the appellant, the petitioner, make their presentation first. So, counselor, I'll ask you to come to the podium and identify yourself and make whatever presentation you would like on behalf of your client.
Good evening, Village Board. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the adjournment as well. My name is Attorney Joshua Konopacki of Kramer Maltoff LLP. I'm here on behalf of James Cadd, owner of Quail Point Apartments at 1088 Quail Court. We have a written complaint kind of outlining the basis for our request here. Our client believes that this existing ordinance in its current application imposes an unjust and disproportionate costs and lacks a fair, transparent basis for its fee calculations. Under the statute, the kind of purpose of this ordinance is to recover EMS and fire service fees through assessments to properties in kind of proportion to the benefit in which those properties receive demands for service. It's kind of based off a calls for service allocation. However, we would argue that this is, in its current implementation, does not reasonably kind of reflect these calls for service. The first kind of main reasons are these costs are not reflective of idle time and right-of-way calls that fire and EMS handle. So obviously the budget for fire EMS, it's kind of covering those first responders to be on call at all times. Obviously there's portions when those fire and EMS responders are not actively participating in calls, they're kind of waiting at the station on standby for those calls. And with these fees trying to recover the entire budget, you're incorporating those times into these property allocations. Also, on the village's spreadsheet, there was a right-of-ways are kind of described as hard to assign cost fairly when incident is in the open or on the street, treat as overhead and roll up into other property allocations. Obviously, if you have a fire EMS call on the road, you can't assign necessarily a taxable billable address to that property because it's happening in the open. So those kind of costs and those projected amounts of the calls and budget are just kind of allocated up into these other properties. So they may be unreasonably receiving more if they are apportioned a higher share of the ESE fees. There's also no inherent distinction between EMS calls and fire calls. The fire budget, kind of from the MFR of the village, usually consistently has a higher rate of like budget than the EMS budget. However, total fire calls are often substantially lower than total EMS calls. So the average cost per call for fire is much higher than average cost per call for EMS calls. So when you're kind of combining them into the current apportion, you're raising the average price. So if a commercial property, a senior living facility, or a multifamily facility, single family facility, what have you, is receiving more EMS calls than fire calls, they're kind of absorbing some of those fire costs. Our client also believes that the current village's single family home count is inaccurate and misleading. Part of this is believed to be a misclassification of condominiums as single family homes, raising the single family home count, when according to section 93-101 sub G of the Village Ordinance Code, multifamily includes apartments and condominium complexes. If you had less single family homes, they would be apportioned a larger portion of the ESE amount to kind of reach those target goals, which would reduce the ESE burdens on other property types. There's also the concern regarding costs being based on predictive call amounts and predictive payments received, not actual call amounts or actual payments received. The budget is kind of allocated based off of past year's calls for service and past year's amounts recouped for EMS fees. Those could change on a yearly basis, which would have a direct impact on the ESE allocation amount and could result in lower actual price payments for the ESEs. And the final point is the arbitrary changes to the ESE factors and classifications. Obviously now the current ESE fees are kind of 1.0 across the board for all property types. However, in past years, like with senior living facilities, the factor was a 4.75 for care homes and senior living facilities. There was kind of some issues with this, and then the current model is trying to attempt to kind of resolve that by ginning out just kind of 1.0 across the board for everyone. However, this isn't really taking into any consideration of those other variables that I described earlier with the kind of idle costs, the costs per call, and the differences in costs for EMS and fire calls. And the way that this was changed, it kind of leaves that uncertainty going forward that these could be changed in the future. So that is the main reasons we are arguing that is unreasonable today, is that the costs are supposed to recover assessments in proportion to the benefit received by the demands for service as reflected in the calls for service from each respective property class. However, we believe there are too many variables in the current scheme and they are not fairly apportioned to my client's senior living facility property. Thank you.
Counselor, do you have any written materials you want to submit?
I do.
to the
I've
board?
got handfuls of exhibits I can give to the board if
Okay,
they would
if
wish.
you want to hand those down to the clerk, that would be appreciated. We'll make sure those are part of the record. And then if you could just confirm, sir, I have a letter from your client dated January 8th, 2025 to Matt Heiser, the village administrator. This is the original petition. Would you like that entered as part of the record as well?
Yes, that's fine.
All right, and then we have a letter also from Mr. Cad, Watercrest Real Estate, I believe, a representative of your client dated March 6, 2025, indicating an intent to schedule a hearing. It was received by the village on March 6th. Would you like that entered as part of the record as well?
Yes, that is fine.
All right. Any other information that you want to submit as part of your presentation, sir?
No, I believe just my written statement as well as the exhibits as all. I'm
Okay,
looking
you
for.
provide that to the
I
clerk?
did provide that, yes.
All right. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Konopacki?
I mean, I have a whole bunch of questions, but I'm I guess I'll start with the question to our council. Again, the appeal is just as the ordinance as written applied correctly to specific property, correct? I just want that on the record.
Correct. The standard that the board has to consider is determining whether the number of ESCs assigned is fair and reasonable in accordance with the terms of the ordinance.
Okay, so nothing needs to be factored in on our motivation or intent on changing from the 4.75 to 1 or anything along probably the bottom 4 of the bullet points from the council that are applying to the previous application of the ordinance.
It's the terms and conditions of the ordinance as it exists today.
Thank you.
But Counselor, I do have a question. The ordinance, our ordinance section 93.105 sub A, requires that a written appeal specify the grounds for the challenge, which I think you've set forth satisfactorily, but it also requires that the appeal state the amount of the fee that the appellant considers to be appropriate. Does your client have a position on a fee that he would consider appropriate?
Yes, my client's, he's kind of reviewed some other like-minded similar ordinances, and he believes that a 0.5 ESE fee would be appropriate here. It's similar to the ESE for comparable property types that the city of Delafield uses. Okay.
So he feels that 0.5 for his property or his property classification?
Yes, like the senior living, yeah. So his property, and I guess, yeah, in tandem, kind of senior living facilities in general.
Okay, because wasn't he arguing that he wasn't a senior living facility? I believe that was the initial stance of him, that he was requiring a lower than a 4.75 is because they're apartments, they're not senior living.
Correct.
So
That is a very
he
correct
basically sat in front of us last year and argued that they are single independent units that should not be treated as senior living or granted any of that designation.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I understand that. He had that as like that previous.
Okay,
kind
but
of-
now he wants 0.5 for his senior living classification.
Yes, because it's just kind of going through the current appeal process. We're.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, bound to the terms of the ordinance.
Okay.
I also recall, if I'm not mistaken, that his suggestion was for it to be at 1 to match the single-family homes. Perhaps we can double-check that.
And I just want to clarify for the record that this appellant did not make it to the hearing last year for the 2023. He did submit a petition, but a timely request to appear before this board was not submitted, so.
I'm sorry, not in the appeal process. in
Correct.
the comment.
Comments may have been made in citizen comments throughout the board, but there was no 2023
Oh, sure.
appeal hearing in front of this
Correct.
board.
Sorry.
So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
So he's also finding it unreasonable that general fire EMS calls in public right-of-way are being assigned to these ESEs that are then put on the properties, correct?
Yes, because of my current understanding of the ordinance is obviously trying to recap that budget that's not recovered from EMS revenues. They're kind of hitting that budget break point. So if you're incorporating those calls, obviously into the total budget, those calls should be kind of almost in theory like subtracted from that total recoverable amount because you're apportioning those right-of-way calls into all the different property allocations.
Okay, so hypothetically, if we were to remove those from here, is he willing to not let his residents use any public right-of-ways? Because then they would not be paying into any of those services that are rendered on streets. You know, do you see what I'm saying is, I'll put it in the lawyer world, basically they're on retainer. You know, we have to subsidize them to be on call at the ready for regardless of who's out there. I don't know if it was his resident, one of his residents, or one of the other ones that came previously who had an episode here, and fire and EMS had to be called. Are you saying that we shouldn't have fire and EMS come to village property then because we don't know where to assign that cost?
No, the theory with that would be those costs are kind of just eaten up in like the village allocation through property taxes or more generalized expenses, not the specific allocations.
Even though
to
it's
different properties.
village residents that may be receiving those services.
Yes, because it's the property owners and that is the way it's being assessed currently.
Okay.
President Knudsen? So to reiterate, our role as the board is just to assess that we agree that the ESCs are correct, right?
That they're assigned fair and reasonable in accordance with the terms of the ordinance. That's the verbatim standard.
So is it up to us to agree to the 4.75 and the quantity, or just the quantity?
There is no 4.75.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, that
No.
that doesn't exist anymore.
That is gone.
Okay.
The ordinance was modified for a 1.0 ESC assignment per unit.
Okay.
So there is no 4.75 assessed in 2024.
And can we,
And the village administrator is actually going to give the village position too, so that may answer some of your questions.
Yep,
but I don't
okay,
want to
thank you.
cut you off. Any other questions for the appellant? Do you have anybody else speaking on behalf of your client?
I do not.
All right, so then we're going to close your portion of the evidence, and I'll turn to the village administrator to present the village's position, please.
Thank you, Attorney Gerlinski. KKNN LLC, owners of Quail Point Apartments, filed an appeal for the 2024 fire and EMS fees on January 8th, 2025 with the village. The property is located at 1088 Quail Court. And for the record of this hearing, the tax ID number is PWV 0903106. The property is zoned as IPS, which is institutional. And the ordinance classifies this property as senior living. The ordinance charges that classification, charges the senior living classification, 1 ESC per residential unit. In 2024, the village charged 135 ESCs for 135 residential units, amounting to a total of $59,265. Upon receipt of the appeal, village staff confirmed the property was charged appropriately as defined in the ordinance. KKNN LLC chose to go through the entire process as defined in the ordinance. They appeared before the Public Works and Safety Committee on May 13th, 2025, for a preliminary hearing. The committee recommended to the village board to deny the waiver request. The ordinance was satisfied with appropriate notice to KKNN LLC of a hearing before the village board that would have taken place on June 3rd, 2025. The applicant could not attend on June 3rd, so as Attorney Galinsky said, the board granted them one courtesy adjournment consistent with 2 other applicants, and it was adjourned to tonight, June 17th. And the ordinance was again satisfied with appropriate notice to KKNN LLC with the new hearing date of June 17th.
Any questions for the administrator?
I do, I have one. Administrator, so you mentioned that it's zoned, zoned institutional.
Institutional.
And then we classify it as senior living. So in terms of this EMS scenario, since they're both listed in our ordinance, did we do the senior living? Which one does it fall under for the EMS or the ESE bucket?
So it's based on zoning.
Okay.
But it then classifies it as senior living, and with the revisions to the ordinance that occurred in 2024, all residential units receive a charge of 1 ESC per residential unit, really regardless of classification.
Well, the institutional is 1 per 6,500 square feet, according to this, right? And then the senior living is 1 per unit. Am I mistaken?
No, so senior living, while a number of the definitions and classifications are tied to zoning, senior living is one that is not. So it is a separate classification with its own definition that's not. So for example, we had another appellant that was in the B2 downtown. They are by definition a commercial property. For senior living, that's a separate classification that's not necessarily tied to zoning.
Okay, so we are charging them, I guess is my question, for the senior living aspect, not the institutional.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And there's no discrepancy that we incorrectly calculated the number of units in the property?
Not that I'm aware of.
At the preliminary hearing, Mr. Cat himself agreed that there is 135 units in his building.
Okay.
Which was the primary basis for the Public Works and Safety Board recommending denial, since it was confirmed by the applicant that it was 135 units and 135 ESCs were applied.
Are there any other questions or comments? There are none, Matt.
All right.
We'll go from here.
I will declare the village's portion of the presentation closed. Given the burden is on the appellant, I'll give Mr. Konopacki one more opportunity to present any additional information you'd like based on the village's position.
I have nothing further to present.
All right, thank you, sir. Then we will declare the evidence portion of the hearing closed, and the board, I think, is free to deliberate based on the information presented by counsel for the appellant as well as the village administrator.
Someone like to make a comment?
One more question, Administrator. So the date that they filed this was post, I understand that it's regardless of whatever the ordinance is today, is what we're discussing, but was the filing post the change to the 1.0?
Yes.
It was?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so the ordinance was revised in November of 2024, and
Okay.
we received the appeal in January of 2025.
Got it, thank you.
Yep, so the appeal is for a fee in a specific tax year. So it's for the 2024 tax year. which reflected the changes the board made in October, I think, of last year. So it would reflect the 1.0.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I would just like to state that I feel that we're looking at what we have heard this evening, that they were charged properly, 135 units. They were charged the one SC charge that he had asked for years previous, and I do not see any reason why there should be any changes to the EMS fee at this time. Anyone else like to make a comment?
In terms of was the charges done fair and just in alignment with the ordinance? I believe that it was.
I also in agreement that to find it reasonable as a single person living alone, I was charged the same amount as any of these residents potentially living alone, one ESE. I feel that to be reasonable.
Yes, sir.
Do we know how many multifamily units we have in Pewaukee offhand? Is it?
A lot.
A lot, right?
Yes.
We're the highest in Waukesha County.
Right. And I think two, maybe three multifamily units have properly came to the board for appeal. So that ratio, the other multiple multifamily units agree with the ESE. Just want to go on record saying that.
Any other comments, questions? If there are none, would someone like to make a motion? Is that what I'm looking for here, Matt?
Correct. I'd like to make a motion to deny the waiver based on the fact that the calculations were accurate and equitable in the way that they were applied.
Second, Stout.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one we have here is discussion of possible action to confirm committee board appointments by the village president. We have a fire commission, one trustee. I asked Nick to be on this for a 2-year term, and he has graciously said yes, he would do it. So I would like to appoint him this evening for our liaison to the fire commission. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion to approve Nick as the trustee liaison to our fire committee.
Second, Grabowski.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Nick, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Review and discussion about concerns regarding overcrowding and public behavior on the beach at Pewaukee Lake. I know this has been talked about quite a bit around the community, and Trustee Belt has put this on for this evening, so I'll look for her to start it. And then if anybody else wants to chime in after that, we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, President Knutson. Just a little background, I guess, as to why I asked this to be put on the agenda. After receiving several citizen concerns, complaints, however you want to classify them, about activities at the beach over the last couple of weeks, I just wanted to bring it to the board for us just to have an open conversation, dialogue amongst us to see if there's anything that we want to do, if there is anything that we can do. We have a few new board members on the board since we've had these conversations in the past, so I wanted to see maybe where their insight was, being new on the board also, get a little bit of different perspective. We have made a lot of improvements over the year to the overall downtown area and the safety, just looking to see if maybe there's more that we can do. Police chief is here, so he can obviously provide us some insight into our discussion. You know, there's safety concerns of people not using crosswalks, kids just jetting across the road. Kids, yes, having fun on the beach, and obviously I don't mind teenagers on the beach playing, throwing a ball, having a great time, blowing off steam and staying away from screens or other potential illegal activities that teenagers can get into. But there is also, as Chris had mentioned in her citizen comments, there is general respect and courtesy. How do we enforce that? I don't know. But when I have our village residents or even the city of Pewaukee residents calling me because they don't want to send their middle school age children down there at the beach because of the language, because of the activities, because kids are getting run over or they're in the water and their beach towers are nicely laid out and kids are running over them. Someone's sitting there reading a book, just enjoying the day, and sand's being kicked up into their face. Again, yes, general courtesy. I don't know how we monitor that or police that, but I guess I would like our residents to see that we are noting this and that we're having conversations about what we can potentially do better down there. One of my concerns is if we're driving our own, I don't want to say just our residents, but anyone that wants to come down there and just enjoy the beach peacefully, I'm afraid of driving those people away and it harming our businesses, the people that patronize the businesses. If we drive those types of people away, then our businesses are going to be harmed in that too, potentially because of disorderly behavior down on the beach. So again, I was just looking for us, as you can see, it's not an action item on the agenda. I just wanted to have discussions. I have since talked to Trustee Krabowski. He has expressed some concerns. He had also talked to, and he can discuss what he talked and some potential ideas he has, but he took it a step further and did talk to our police, and there's been a little bit more enforcement down there. So again, just looking for a dialogue from the board on what we could potentially do to keep it a enjoyable environment for everybody.
I believe this is under Public Works and Safety, correct?
I don't know if it was. I don't believe it was on Public Works and Safety. It may be in the future. I don't know. I suppose I could speak now since I'm named in the agenda, and one of the local county media outlets has really taken a shine to this topic. Can't wait to see what sound bites come out of this one, but hate to ruin it for everyone. We're not looking to turn Pewaukee into a police state and having kids arrested for saying F-bombs and things like that. They could print that one, I guess. But I did receive complaints from residents. Our job as board members are to bring those complaints, to take them serious, and to bring them back to the staff to address and show them as valid. So I only received 3 complaints, so not as many as Trustee Belt, but I too had, in my experience, trust but verify. I want to go experience it myself and see if there was any, if they held water at all. And yeah, that week where schools lets out, I would want to say since COVID, we've really seen an uptick as the start of summer where it gets extremely crowded down there. And we've seen it every year, and it tends to trail off as sports and festivals and everything else get going on. This one seemed a little bit worse to myself. What I had confirmed, as the residents had stated, was you know, kids throwing balls back and forth across the street, just running across in the middle of nowhere, encouraging people to rev their engines, you know, motorcycles spinning tires, it's yada, yada, yada. That's going to probably get printed. But it wasn't anywhere that I would want to hang out. And that was kind of my barometer, my threshold there of like, do I really see an issue here? Would I at least hang out down here? Because yes, kids are kids, beaches are crowded, weather's hot, we have a lake, we want to encourage people down there. Nowhere are we looking to put in new ordinances or laws, at least my own opinion, to try to curb any of this. I met with Deputy Chief Folth and Sergeant Twellmeyer, who's the second shift sergeant, you know, and then Administrator Heiser, just to discuss what was going on down there and kind of maybe game plan going forward. And I want to tip my cap to our police force here. They're great community representatives. They're great community liaisons. They're great just in general in terms of interacting with the crowd or with our community. And what came out of it was basically the idea to use that between the deputy chief and sergeant, was use that to our advantage. And it was basically to have just more of a presence down there. And it's not about writing tickets, it's not about cuffing and stuffing kids in the back of police cars or anything like that. It was just to have a presence so that if there is any feeling uneasiness, there is a resource right down there for residents to go to. I got to see it firsthand then. The following Wednesday, there was an issue on the beach, which was talked about relentlessly on social media. There was a police presence down there, but that lingered on into the evening hours when Waterfront Wednesday was starting. And to stroll down there with the same amount of crowd, similar weather conditions, but just in a completely different feel. Everything seemed a little bit calmer, everything seemed a little bit easier going, and it wasn't enjoyable to be down there. It was what we envisioned Pewaukee Beach to be. Busy, vibrant, people on the sidewalks, people enjoying the water, people of all ages, especially the Waterfront Wednesdays, you know, so the whole lakefront was full. And like I said, that's where the tip of the cap comes to our police force of being a presence down there. You know, as Trustee Bell said, there's no action item on this. This is just for discussion, you know, to provide your own feedback, input, opinions, experiences as you will. That's just kind of giving some context to the concerns I received that I passed along to the police department, who respectfully responded to those and addressed them and added presence down there, which I think took the temperature, pun intended, of the beach down significantly. We do, as citizen comment stated, we get a very short season here. This is the jewel of Pewaukee. This is the reason people come down there. This is the reason the businesses open down there. You know, it's all about making it enjoyable for everyone to experience. And it was never about, you know, stopping kids from swearing or an innocent game of volleyball. It was just about making it fun for all. That's all it was.
Anybody else like to make a comment? I think Bob.
Yeah, I think last week you had a perfect storm because you had all the high schools let out for the final time. You had beautiful weather down there, and our beach is a magnet. Okay, so you had a lot more people down there than we've experienced, all with the same attitude. It's the end of school. Our reaction of our police force, I think, was exactly what we needed. I've been through the downtown area probably 4 times today, and every single time I either passed a police car or a police car was parked in a bump out. You know, it's all about police presence, and just that presence makes a difference. So thank you for that. I think you and your troops reacted the way we needed. I'd like to hear your point of view on you know, what took place and essentially what your reaction was also, Chief.
Real quick, the whole presence part of it, so that everyone's clear, is not about intimidation. I mean, this police force has it, you know, down to a T. It's about just community involvement and being there as a resource, and I think that worked.
So our officers met with Trustee Grabowski on the 10th,
And already on the 11th, we had 4-hour blocks. We identified the time between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. as the time when there's the most activity. So we put an officer down there every day since, and I just got an email during the meeting here. Literally, the officer stopped at every single business, and I know we have a lot of business owners here, stopped at every business, listened to their concerns. I got a text message earlier from one of the TV stations asking how many arrests, how many citations have we gotten, and the answer is 0. We have not issued citations, we have not made any arrests. I think it's presence, it's that positive community interaction. We're trying to steer people to the crosswalks because we have an officer there. And I also drove by the lakefront a couple times today, and I saw the officer out there, I saw the squad out there, and he was just interacting with people. And I think that's a positive thing. We have enough money in the overtime budget that we can continue this. It's very fiscally sound because we look at what's the weather coming up. If we're looking at rain, we're going to pull it back. If somebody only does a 2-hour overtime block instead of 4 hours, we are very fiscally responsible that way. But I've seen nothing but positive things come out of this. How long is it going to continue? We'll discuss that and evaluate on a basis as it goes. But even our reckless driving, to have that officer down there and call out to another squad, and it's so hard to make traffic stops right down by the lakefront. So sometimes we pull a traffic stop, blocks and blocks away. But, and again, 4 warnings, we gave warnings for revving the engine. So we are definitely not out there to issue citations unless it's warranted. But interesting, we met on the 10th, and right away on the 11th, we had an action on the beach. We had somebody scheduled to start at 3 o'clock, and it happened at 2:45. The nice thing was it's shift change. We had 6 officers that were there in 1 minute, and we were able to talk to the people, escorted them out, interviewed them. Why are you having this consensual wrestling between 2 people? But it did draw a crowd. It drew a lot of cell phones out there. But that was a premeditated school saying, let's meet at the beach on this day. It's the perfect storm with all these different people. But again, no arrests were made out of it, and I think it's a positive thing.
Thank you for your efforts.
Any other comments?
President Knudsen?
Go ahead.
Yes.
I want to say that this is a good problem to have. I know the word problem is an issue, but it's definitely a good problem to have. And respect to the police, respect to the parks and the directors there, they make the lakefront beautiful every single morning. And their job and their hard work attracts residents and non-residents to use it. And that benefits not only myself as a resident, but also the business owners. Their revenues go up. I talk to multiple business owners during the summer. That's the most valuable time for them. And it's a great thing. It's a great thing. I've been here for 15 years, and I know every single time when school gets out, we're gonna see some things that we might not wanna see. But that's okay. That comes down to a parenting issue maybe, or respect from the people attending the beach, but it's not a government issue. But what does concern me, being a resident myself and driving on the lakefront continuously, is the safety. Are we doing enough as a village or a board when it comes to safety? Every time I drive down there, I see the 2 crosswalks, and every time I drive down there, I see multiple people not using the crosswalks. I also see people driving way too fast, kids driving in and out. As a resident, I know to drive extremely slow with caution. I don't want to see a headline someday of some little child getting hit down there. So I think as a board, maybe, and this probably has been done in the past since I am new on the board, are we addressing the safety concerns enough?
I would like to piggyback off that. I completely agree. I can see the lake or the right downtown from the rear of my property. We walk downtown often, and even as an adult crossing, it's wild sometimes. Is there, and I have no idea where these funds come from or how they're allocated or if it's volunteer time. You said the busiest times are between 3 and 8 p.m.?
The busiest times, yes, that we can kind of forecast there might be some issues.
Is there, I don't know how this works since I am new as well, is there a place where, like, you know how students get help to cross the road when the school lets out? Is that a possibility that we do from 3 to 6, I don't know, on the busiest days of the week? Because there are little kids that run out, and like you said, I know to drive slowly, we all know to drive slowly, but there's many people down there who don't. And I'm sure that the cruising ordinance is going to help this in time. And obviously, with you guys down there every day, and I see you guys, so thank you immensely as well. But I'm very concerned for the safety in addition to, you know, the crowds and kids.
I'll round it out. So I also hear the sentiment that Chris spoke about, you know, the kids being outside, and I think we all agree that that's great. I certainly hope the families don't let that deter them. To Trustee Belt's point, I think saying, like, you know, as a parent with young kids, saying something to those kids really would go a long way. So, you know, encouraging the community to know that that is meant for all ages and all levels of everyone to enjoy, and that, you know, you should feel as such and to respectfully interact together, just as we have to do in every sector of our life. The traffic, like, keeps me up at night. I was driving the other day, and there was a kid who had his phone out videoing the beach, driving like this the whole way down the beachfront, like recording the beach, not looking ahead at all. And those things, I completely agree with the safety comments that have been made. I think that is where we can be effective and be good government, is really figuring out better avenues for that. Always are we seeing kids running across, and teenagers and even adults. I mean, people with like their young kids like walking through the middle of the street, which just makes me crazy. But you know, I think that we need to rethink that. You know, you see people who are 5 feet from somebody sitting there in a chair enjoying dinner, and then there's a kid running across from them. I think it's an accident waiting to happen. And I've been a proponent of trying to look for avenues to reduce driving on that street. I know there's been a lot of, you know, there's a lot of technicalities in that, but even if it was a partial from, you know, the Dunkin' lot to the beginning, and I agree, we don't tell people enough about the municipal lot. There is a lot of parking opportunities there that a lot of people don't know about, and especially in summer, that short little walk shouldn't be any problem at all. So I see that as the bigger issue, but I would want to, you know, I do want to encourage our residents to still go and enjoy it, and if kids are saying negative words or things like that, like I hope that we as a community can respectfully work through that together so that all age groups can enjoy it too.
Yeah, and I think the sentiment that came out of the meeting when I met with the police department was, there is no silver bullet to fix every issue down there. It's just, you know, where can we start, and what the positive changes was gonna, you know, happen from that. And, you know, what I witnessed, you know, myself was, you know, kids were right up, you know, filling the sidewalk right up to the street, talking to their friends who were leaving, driving a car, you know, distracted. And I couldn't agree with you more that I stay up, you know, or fearing when we're gonna see that headline that somebody was hit down there. You know, so it was, what came out of it was, okay, let's have a presence. Let's stop the kids from yelling from the beach to the cars. Let's try to eliminate some of the distractions. Let's, you know, just keep some order down there. It's going to come down to a lot of the patrons or visitors having some accountability and just having some respect for the area. I would like it printed though, if we could please remember to pick up after ourselves when they leave the beach. Our Park and Rec does a fantastic job maintaining it, but they are not maids. If that's the sound clip that comes out of this, I hope so. You know, clean up after yourself. This is something that we hold dear. We do know that we're one, if not the only, free beach in Waukesha County, which is why it drives such a traffic here, and we want to keep maintaining that. You know, we don't want to have these discussions with more drastic measures going forward. We just want to enjoy it, and we just want people to enjoy it and enjoy the businesses. So I think that's where we're at.
Is there a way to do any signage for like littering or trash charges that are in accordance to the rules that we have in place? Do we have that?
We can talk to DPW about signage for littering.
Yeah, maybe that would help.
And parks, it's a team effort.
Anyone else like to make any comments? Yes, no.
I don't know if this was discussed, but on the agenda, it says overcrowding. I mean, it's a public, free space. Is there any limit that can be allowed there? And if so, how would that be enforced?
I think we don't be able to force it at that point if we
Okay.
start charging.
Someone's standing there with a little
and start-
clicker.
Yeah, like the
and start-
Costco guy.
Yeah.
One left, hold on.
Yeah.
Make them scan to come in. Yeah. Okay.
The bars from the olden days.
It was, as Police Chief mentioned, a lot of the complaints came out from the perfect storm when multiple schools had their last day and planned to meet up down there. And so it was literally like 2 senior classes at the same time. Yeah, it's a crowd you're only going to see at the beach party, which is coming up this weekend, Taste on the Lake, or 4th of July. I mean, it was dense down there, but it's, you know, as comments pointed out, it's few and far between. There doesn't have to be any overreaction or knee-jerk reaction to it. We just kind of have a presence down there and make it enjoyable as we can.
So for I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
So for the future, should we have some sort of heads up as a board to communicate with the police department, not to be knee-jerk reaction, to address them and say, hey, school graduation is this week and this week. Can we go ahead and approve some additional presence down there?
I don't want to speak for the officers, but I will say that after this year, I think this is now becoming an annual presence thing. It's just going to have to be, it's known. Okay. We're not surprised by it anymore, you know? It's like salting Prospect Street, or Prospect Ave when it rains in the winter. We just have to plan for it and do it.
Anyone else like to make a comment?
I think last comment, and this is just thinking off the top of my head outside of the box, but perhaps perhaps it's worth like doing some research or evaluations on the use of like the grass space and the use of the sand, and is that a consideration over time of like a space we would want to expand if that's where people are piling in and the grass is less used. I don't know that that is actually true. But, you know, is there an expansion opportunity if there was truly a draw for that space and we're not fulfilling the need, you know, just another food for thought there as well.
Trustee Kreiser, are you thinking about expanding the beach or expanding the grass area?
I was thinking the beach in that scenario, but I think it could go either way. But, you know, we, just off the top of my head, like just as a thought that because often I feel like the grass area is less populated. And if that had like a little swimming area too, would that be maybe, perhaps there is then 2 different areas to patron or something. I mean, I'm just, you know, thinking that if overcrowding is something that is a concern, but we want to continue to serve everyone that's coming to our area to enjoy it for those few short months where we really thrive, there is a whole nother half that, you know, is grass area, but also borders the lake.
I love the idea. And then, I mean, like the Brewer Stadium, right? They have a family section. Maybe we can extend it, put some signage up, make the swimming area smaller so families of young ages can enjoy it. I don't know if that's gonna have an adverse effect that's gonna promote the wrong behavior on the other side, but it's good thought, very good thought.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment?
I kind of do like that idea of a little family section maybe, if you have smaller kids. But I also did want to thank the police department, because I know you guys did step up after your conversation with Trustee Grabowski. So I've taken a couple of walks now downtown too, and I've seen the presence there, and I appreciate that, having that there. So hopefully that just continues to help with it, and but not from an intimidation standpoint. Like, that's the last thing I want out there, is that people don't fear to come to the beach because they think our big tough police force is just there to monitor every little thing, which is not the case. It's purely there just to be a resource to everybody, is more the look of it. So I think that's helpful.
That's our goal.
Yep.
Well, I guess I just would like to say, as a lifelong resident of Pewaukee, this isn't the first time when I grew up here. I think, Bob, you can remember too, there's been some fun down at the lakefront.
Ooh, tell us some stories. Bob, you care to share?
Come on.
Not that I'm saying.
They'd have some
but
good,
I was
they'd
part
have
of it,
some good
but,
footage then.
You know, you got some young people down there, and you got ladies down there, and it's just natural sometimes that men would like to show off to the ladies, and maybe gets a little out of hand. It's nice that, from what I understand, from what I heard from the chief, that the people that had the issue, that you had to send people down, the cops down, they were very polite and cordial to you.
Yes.
And the officers handled it that way, and they agreed to leave. There was no fighting, no arguing.
No injuries, nothing.
It was just wonderful. I've noticed throughout my time here with the chief and our officers that at special events, that when our officers are around, the people intermingle with them and talk to them and are smiling and having a good time. And I'm assuming that's gonna be the same type of approach that you'll be using down there.
Absolutely.
The board has taken action. We painted the crosswalks a bright red so people knew where the crosswalks were. We put in speed bumps to slow the traffic down. We dropped the speed limit down to 15. But there's just nothing, I don't think, you can do. I mean, you could put up signs, no rubbernecking, as far as looking at the beach, but how do you enforce that? So I think it also falls on, many years ago, again, I'm going back to with my youth, when I did something wrong, I don't know who I was more afraid of, the police or my parents. So I think it's up to the parents to, kind of tell the kids, hey, when you go down there, act like your age. Don't be stupid. People are looking at you, and you don't want to get in trouble. I think that would be something that would be nice to see and hear. I see families, just like everybody here, not using the crosswalk, and I just shake my head. I'm like, Mom and Dad, you're 5 feet from the crosswalk, you're taking your kids across. What kind of example are you showing there? That you don't have to obey the law. Unfortunately, I have a lady that sits next to me that will beat the horn at them. So I just think, you know, if, I don't want to get too heavy into the strong arm of the police action. I think what's working down there now is working, and it's looking good. But I think it's time too that the parents step up a little bit and take some responsibility and talk to their kids and say, hey, if you're going to the beach, you know, kind of keep it cool, okay? There's other people there that want to enjoy it also. So, with that being said, are there any other questions or comments? And we're going to move on. Thank you, everyone, for your comments this evening.
Oh, and just to let the board know, the crosswalks are planning to be repainted this week, weather permitted, so.
Okay, good. Review, discussion, and possible action to cancel the July 1, 2025 village board meeting. Matt, we've been discussing this. What's your feeling so far?
Well, the only thing we have for sure on the agenda at this point would be a presentation from Waukesha County Center for Growth. She would be available on August 5th, which would be our first Tuesday board meeting in August, if the board wished to cancel.
Motion to
Anybody on the board have?
Sorry.
Not so fast.
All right, motion
How
to
do you feel
cancel,
about it,
motion to
Jim?
cancel the July 1st meeting.
Does anybody have anything in their little sack of goodies that they may want to put on for the first meeting in July, or are we all comfortable with canceling the July 1st meeting?
I'm fine with it.
Could somebody,
I'll second Jim's motion.
do we want to have a motion?
He did.
Jim made a motion, it's been seconded.
Oh, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? July 1 is canceled, or the meeting is.
Going right to July 2nd.
Yeah. Review, discussion, and possible action to approve the bills and invoices for May 2025. I will look for a motion to approve all bills and invoices except for the library as presented this evening.
Motion to approve as presented. Rhodey?
Second, Grabowski.
Here we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. I will look for a motion to acknowledge the bills and invoices from the library for May 2025.
Motion to acknowledge the library invoices for May of 2025.
Second, Pedro.
Have a motion and a second. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Everything is taken care of there. Review, discussion, and possible action on notice of claim filed by Landang. The village board of the Village of Pewaukee entered in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 1985 1G for conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically regarding the aforementioned claim. After conclusion of any closed session, the village board will convene in open session, Wisconsin section 1985-2 for possible additional review, discussion, and action concerning the agenda and to address the remaining meeting agenda. Do I look for a motion to go into closed session, please?
President Knutson, real quick, would we be able to do item K in open session right now while we're at it, just to clear it out before we go into closed session?
You can do it, you'll have to reread the 8J though. So pick your poison.
I didn't know if anyone was here, was waiting for item K, if not.
Okay, we got review, discussion, and possible action to approve Mimic Mobile Home Trailer Park license for Pewaukee Lake Estates. Do I have a motion to approve as presented?
Motion to approve as presented. As long, the clerk has no issues?
What's that?
No, sorry. So I was gone last week and it actually didn't get on the agenda, so I stuck it on the bottom because I didn't want to have to renumber everything. So that's why.
Okay, but
No
there's
problems, no.
Motion to approve as presented. Second, Stout.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Review, discussion, of possible action on notice of claim filed by Land Day, the Village Board of Village Milwaukee, entered a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 1985, 1G for conferring and legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically regarding the aforementioned claim. After conclusion of any closed session, the village board will convene in open pursuant to Wisconsin Section 1985-2 for litigation, review, discussion, and action concerning this agenda item to redress the remaining meeting agenda. Do I look for a motion to go in?
I'm gonna have the.
Don't even go there.
I'm gonna have the administrator just introduce the topic, please.
Okay.
In open session.
Thank you, President Knutson, Attorney Gorlinski. So on May 16th, I believe, on May 9th, I apologize. On May 9th, the village clerk received this notice of claim filed against the village. It is for a slip and fall on a public sidewalk. And we referred the issue to the insurance company for the village, who has rendered a recommendation for us tonight.
And the purpose of the closed session is to go over that recommendation with the village attorney as well. So I think it would be appropriate for the board to go into closed session to discuss the recommendation and strategy going forward.
Before I go into closed session, we're gonna go into closed session. If you wanna stick around, but you'll have to go outside the door outside this.
At least in the
meeting room,
lobby.
And then we'll call you back in.
It's not on the agenda, ma'am. So it won't be acted on this evening.
You can follow up with the administrator.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll make sure.
Sorry for making you sit then the whole time.
I was wondering if that's why.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to move into closed session, please.
Motion to move into closed session.
Second, Rody.
Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Stout?
Aye.
Trustee Rhodey?
Yes.
Trustee Belt?
Yes.
Trustee Fader?
Yes.
Trustee Kreiser?
Yes.
Trustee Grabowski?
Yes.
President Knutson?
Yes. We are hereby in closed session. Turn your mic. You're back in open session.
Turn your mic on, Jeff. Or is it, are you leaving it off? Are you leaving your mic off because of the nose? Okay.
Okay, I'll look for a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to
Disallow the claim of land dang.
I'll make a motion to disallow the claim of land
Dang.
Thank you.
Second, Rhodey.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with the board members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the board is not able to answer questions or to respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the board. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, with time being indicated by an audible alarm. When the alarm sounds, speakers are asked to conclude their comments. Speakers are asked to please use the podium and state their name and address for the record. Yes, sir, would you like to come up?
So now that the news media is out of here, we can talk to you guys as real.
I think the mic's,
You turn the mic back on.
I can talk loud, so don't worry, I don't need to have a microphone.
So now that they're out of here, I just want to make the police, the deputies and the chief police and everyone here in the village, as well as you guys, are doing a remarkable job. Last week, I experienced something that I hope to God I never see again. I've been a resident of Heartland for 53 years of my life. Grew up on these lakes. I sail on Pewaukee Lake. I've been a member of the yacht club for 25 years. I opened up this bar to bring in a whole side of Pewaukee that's way down there to here. I'm a sailor. My sailing friends come down there. When I start getting customers coming to me and saying they're getting sick of the recklessness of the revving the engines and the cat calling to my waitresses and to looting in front of my business, I have a problem. I called the police right away, took care of it. They all of a sudden turned me into a whole different person. I didn't want to go on record for it. That's why I brought up the parking thing, because I knew exactly where this was going to stem. But we have to address this problem, because if my business, and I told Joel Grosh this, and I told John Seatman this, my business gets affected because I can't have people, and I just got my conditional use permit for my nice little area out there. Mind the way, I'm not doing my hot dog cart because of the fact that they are making fun of my kids. So I had to pull them off the street. Is that fair to me? I don't think our girls are feeling very safe there by what's going on. Now, the police this week have been present. It's been great. The police office, the police chief, not the police chief, but the police officers come into my office or my bar. I give them water. They can use it for facilities to use the bathroom, cool off for a little bit. I want to welcome them. I want them to know that I appreciate what they're doing more than you know. But we need to change this downtown. I would love to see a boardwalk. I would love to see something more. I'd like to see it like Oconomowoc. We as a board and as business owners, if you want to have me stay down here, which I do for long terms, we need to change. And I told John Steven that, and I told Joel Grosh that. We need, and Lazar agrees with me and a lot of other businesses I've talked to, we need to change this. We need to make it better and pro-business and pro-community. Community, making it all one. Feel like we are one big community, enjoying the lake, enjoying this stuff, enjoying the boaters, enjoying the kids, families, teenagers. I was a kid once too, raised hell on the lakes. But at the end of the day, what they did was cruel, rude, and obnoxious. And as a parent, I even told the police deputy chief, I would be more scared of my father when I got home than the police. I'd tell them to arrest me before I can go to jail before I got home. I would get my butt beat to the point where it wasn't even able to sit down. So parenting is 101. But two, I appreciate what they've done. I appreciate, Jim, what you've done. I appreciate what Rhodey's done. I appreciate all of you, what you've done. I just want it to change. I want this to be a gem of a place. I want it to be a Delafield. I want it to be an Oconomowoc. I want it to be a Stone Bank where I grew up, Heartland. Let's make it better. I know this is just the beginning, but I appreciate you guys listening to me. And please, we gotta work on the parking. The parking is number one in my condition. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
name's Eli Kelling, 571 East Wisconsin Avenue. I've been part of the water ski club, I'm gonna say for about 9 years before I took a break. I was one of the safety boat drivers. I also bartended down at Velo City Bike Shop for about 6, maybe 7 years. I'd have to double check that. What I've seen in downtown is that there's a level of traffic that comes from the community that is somewhat reasonable and well managed, as we see from lack of actual accidents with vehicles, lack of police calls, lack of ambulance responses. I hear a lot of concern for safety. I agree with you guys. You guys have done an amazing job with the downtown area. I've seen it grown. I've learned so much. It's been amazing for me. I think that if the threat for safety is the vehicles, I would caution that we stop thinking of the beach goers as issues or concerns. It's the vehicles, it's the licensed vehicles. So maybe that's a boardwalk, maybe that's something to look at. I don't know. Speed bumps have been amazing. We used to have all kinds of reckless driving down there when I was bartending. I don't see much of any of that anymore, so thank you, I appreciate it. I was not a fan of the speed bumps. It was a good call. So I've had a very different experience down there than Tim has. I don't want to negate what he talked about, but I appreciate what you guys are doing, and please try to keep in mind that, again, low ambulance response, low fire department response, low police officer response. I think the crime is, the theft is caught 9 out of 10, I believe. I heard somebody say at the police department. So we're doing a great job, and we have an amazing community. And if Tim, I'll talk with Tim later, but if he has some security concerns, I'm more than happy to help out with any of the security concerns downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make a comment?
I'll just hear from Joe.
Oh, okay. Well, you're at the end then. Item 10 is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Brody.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone.